Hello everyone. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at an article from Yahoo News and Reuters. Now, this was published on November 23rd, and it's written by Elizabeth Diaz. So, basically, with all the reports that are now sneaking out that the legacy media has not been able to counter, they've tried to avoid it actually, that are, these out of Mexico, these things are coming out of, where all this crime is happening in Tijuana, because they know people in the U.S. are now catching wind of this. They're trying to spin it that it's the migrants who are victims of it as opposed to the perpetrators of it, which has been documented. All right, there's been a major rash of carjackings by the migrants. Okay, there have been other major crimes like assaults and robberies. All right, this is besides the fact that they're being ungrateful fucking bitches going, well, we don't like Mexican food. We want pizza and soda. Shit like that. So they're trying to portray these people as just victims and trying to get a better life when they've been offered, places to stay, offered the opportunity to stay in Mexico, get a job, things like that. But no, they want, Pizza Hut and fucking Xbox. Well, they're chugging a big gulp of Coke. So we got to spin this whole situation of them being the perpetrators of crime. So they start out with the real feels part of it. Mexico. Writers. Unaccompanied minors and other vulnerable migrants risk falling victim to crime in the Mexican border city of Tijuana, where thousands of Central Americans from caravans may be stuck for months as authorities tighten up asylum rules, advocates say. Bullshit. In comparison, there's only a small little chunk of women and children that the men force to go up front so that they get sympathy and it looks like they have more women and children. Because they're only shooting the caravan from the front. It's mostly men. Young men. Criminal young men. This is what they're reporting out of the fucking Tijuana press. This isn't something I'm making up. This is what people who follow that shit, who follow Spanish press, that isn't like the legacy media type shit here. Like, and I've mentioned it before, a friend of mine, a Guatemalan, he keeps up on all that shit. And I find out, and I gotta go and then I go look up for myself, but I find out a lot of stuff with the caravan from him because he gets it from these Spanish news outlets. And then I got to go dig it down, research it and find reports of it in English because I don't speak Espanol. So, hey, and I look at what's going on and I'm like, holy shit. And then I see this and I'm like, oh my God, they really are trying to spin this so bad that it's hopefully going to come back and bite them in the ass and backfire on them. Some 4,600 migrants from the bedraggled caravans. Bedraggled? Probably bedraggled. Some 4,600 when they got to use big words like that, they're trying to sound more intellectual than they are. They don't need to say that, all right? They could have chosen a lot simpler word, but they got to look like they're intellectual superiors because that's how they portray themselves in order to say this is a moral plus. This is a moral good that we let these people in. So some 4,600 migrants, some 4,600 illegals who have just violated multiple borders of sovereign nations from bedraggled caravans whose advance has angered U.S. President Donald Trump, are camped out with blankets and little food in an overcrowded stadium in Tijuana, whose mayor has declared a humanitarian crisis. And what gets me is the reason why he's declared the humanitarian crisis is because of the caravan and how they're fucking acting. Let's leave that out because that's what he said why he's declaring it a humanitarian crisis, because they are fucking the city up. And you failed to mention, oh, they got little food. No, they're getting 3 square meals a day supplied by the Mexican fucking government. The people don't want to eat it, though, because they don't want Mexican food. They want pizza and soda and all those things that they could get when they come to America, which is why they don't want to stay in Mexico and follow international law when it says, hey, the first nation that you cross the border, come to the border of, you're supposed to report for asylum, you're supposed to request asylum at. But they don't want to do that. Trump has sent troops to the U.S.-Mexico border, Trump has sent troops to the U.S.-Mexican border, authorized the use of lethal force, and threatened to shut down the frontier entirely if the migrant caravans are not stopped. Frontier? There has not been a frontier in this country for well over a century. Let me translate that. What Elizabeth here Diaz, with a name like that, you can tell what she's trying to do. The frontier is the wide open fucking border that now has troops on it. It's not a frontier. It's a declared fucking border. It's explored. We know what's there. A frontier is unexplored land. We know what the fuck's there. See, she uses these choices of words to try to slant things. Because Elizabeth is clearly wanting these people to be able to come to the United States, especially with the last name Diaz and how she's writing this shit. Among the Central Americans, many of whom are Hondurans fleeing violence and poverty in the struggling region, are about 80 minors between the age of 10 and 17, according to migrants' rights groups. Only 80. So it's predominantly women and children, but yet there's only 80 minors. Which is it? Predominantly women and children, or there's only a few kids? You just kind of broke your own narrative. Thank you. Jose, it's not like Jose the way I know how it's spelt, but a 15-year-old Honduran in Tijuana said that during and this is before we get into this, they're using this to try to make it sound like it's the Tijuanans that are the violent ones. It's not the migrants. They're just victims of the Tijuanans' violence. So, Jose, a 15-year-old Honduran in Tijuana, said that during a previous attempt to cross into the United States last year, he was kidnapped and badly beaten in Mexico by drug traffickers claiming to be from the notorious Zetas gang. Oh, this isn't going to evoke emotion and try to slant things so that it's the big bad Tijuanans, it's the big bad Mexicans who are violent. It's not the fucking migrants, the supposed migrants, who are carjacking people. Oh, no, it's not them. You don't hear about their carjacking people, though. That was one of the things that my Guatemalan friend pointed out to me. I was like, oh, no shit. And I went and looked it up, and I was like, holy fucking Christ, they are doing that. I ended up in the hospital. I don't know how, because I arrived there half dead, he said, declining to give his second name. He's probably a little cartel fucking stooge. Once he was well enough, authorities deported him, he said. Oh, so Mexicans can fucking deport him? But the U.S.? Oh, no, we just got to take these fucking people? Reuters was not able to independently corroborate details of his story, yet you decided to post it. Go figure. You decided to put it in your article. Mexico's Immigration Institute did not immediately respond to a request for comment about the case. Tijuana was rated by Mexican think tank Seguridad Justica y Paz as the fifth most violent city in the world in 2017, with a high murder rate than the Central American cities from which the migrants are escaping. It has a higher murder rate. Okay. Yet they're fleeing. And you want to use that as an emotional appeal? You just defeated the whole fucking purpose of them fleeing violence. Tijuana has a higher murder rate. New York probably has a higher murder rate. London probably has a higher murder rate. And here you are trying to claim that they're fleeing violence, and they're in a city that has a higher murder rate than the ones they're fleeing. So they're not fleeing violence. Huh. Good to know. Thank you for destroying your own narrative, Liz. Thank you for destroying the narrative, I should say. Good job. Juan Manuel Gastelum, Tijuana's mayor, said late on Thursday that the city was facing a humanitarian crisis and that supporting the migrants was costing more than 500,000 pesos a day, 25 grand US. He urged international agencies to help Tijuana. So here you are. You're trying to act like, well, they got little food and they don't have this and they don't have that. But yet, here's Tijuana supporting their asses. And it's costing them 25 grand a day. Waiting list. Activists fear the Central Americans could be stranded for a long time in the city, where some protests against the presence of the caravan have broken out. Some protests? Try major protesting has broken out. If people looked beyond you shitbags in the legacy media, they would know that the Mexican people, okay, the Tijuanans, a good number of them, don't want them there. And say that Donald Trump is right. That they're criminals. That they want free handouts and all this other shit. They're saying he's right, and you don't want to talk about that. In May, citing a lack of processing space at the same crossing, U.S. immigration officials stalled a previous caravan that also drew Trump's anger. Eventually, they began letting in a trickle of people from the group. They didn't let them in. They're applying for asylum. And not many of them have been granted it, if at all, if any at all. To manage flows of asylum claimants, Mexican and U.S. authorities have in recent years maintained a waiting list. Lawyers and human rights groups Amnesty International have said such measures slow the process. Oh, fuck you. Amnesty International went from being a good organization that made sure people didn't have their human rights violated to becoming an NGO pushing this open border bullshit. They can go fuck themselves. We have a right to protect our borders. We have a right to have asylum and immigration claims be handled in a orderly fashion. Fuck off. You can't tell us not to. Fuck off. And say, oh, well, it slows the process because you want a revolving fucking door. You want them to just be able to come streaming on in. U.S. Customs and Border Protection said in a statement sent to Reuters that San Ysidro Port of Entry, which connects Tijuana to San Diego in California, could process up to 100 people per day, and that it is working with Mexico to manage the flow. Yeah, but yet you want them to put through 10,000 people. If they tried to do that, all right, people are going to get through the cracks with, like, background checks and shit. And I think that's what you want. I think you just want them to be able to come right across the border. Mexico's National Immigration Institute said it protects the rights of all foreigners and was respectful of immigration policy implemented by other countries. Stalled for days, migrants from the caravan have been signing onto the waiting list. They include gay and transgender teenagers. Gotta throw that in for the fucking feels. Oh yeah, we need to import more mentally ill on the note of the trans people, because trans, whether you want to admit it or not, the DSMV, before the latest change for political reasons, listed it rightfully as a mental disorder. And they're doing this for feels because they're like, oh, we got to let them in. Erica Pinheiro, director of litigation at El Toro Lado, an immigration legal advocacy group, last week told Californian court under oath that LGBT children cannot safely stay in Mexico. They're at risk of violence and persecution. Oh, got to play that fucking card. No one fucking knows what they are. Don't ask, don't tell. They're perfectly fucking fine. And even if they did tell, it's not, they're a Catholic country. Yes, they're going to take some fucking issue with it, but they're not going to get violence and persecute, get assaulted and shit left, right, and center. And what they're going to call persecution are people that don't approve of their lifestyle, not agreeing with it, and not bending over to cater to them. That's what their concept these days when it comes to LGBTQ, AEIOU, and sometimes Y, is the fact that what they believe is persecution is just people critical of their lifestyle. Tijuana has just one shelter for migrant children, which subsists with the help of civic organizations. Young people are definitely the most vulnerable in this type of movement, said Minor Contreras, who runs the local YMCA. We never received so many in such a short time. So what you're getting at is just bad parents. These kids are there, and now it's supposedly our responsibility to take care of them somehow. Send them back to their fucking parents, or send them back if they didn't, you know, leave with their parents' permission or whatever, and they ran away. But if their parents sent them up here, put them in the fucking system back in their own fucking country. I'm sorry to say it, but that's how things should be handled. Just because you come to the U.S., you don't have a fucking right to enter the country. If the children cannot enter the United States, they risk being deported from Mexico. That can spell big trouble. Oh, bullshit. Bullshit. All these fucking excuses to try to railroad them into our country. Fuck off. I don't want to die, said 16-year-old Justin, who related how his life was threatened last month for not paying a war tax that gangsters charged for his small used clothing business in the Honduran city of San Pedro Sula. The day I told my mother to give that day I told my mother to give me her blessing and I left, he said, crying. Oh, come on now. So, he had a business selling used clothing. He could have went to law enforcement, said, hey, they're shaking me down. But he didn't do that. And I understand, you know, that the corruption and shit like that. But he had a business, and now he wants to come to the U.S. and get free shit. Fuck him. And now he wants to play this feelings thing. They are being coached, like Lauren Southern proved. The migrants, the supposed migrants coming into like Greece and Europe, you know, coming into Europe through like Greece and shit, are being coached in a similar manner. To me, when you're turning on Tears on Demand like that, you're supposed to be a man at 16. You trekked all the way from your fucking other country, you know, from another country. You came from Honduras, and then you bawl your eyes out like a little bitch. That's all about sympathy. I mean, I feel for these people. I genuinely do. It might not sound like it, though, but I do. But I look at the fact of the United States has its own problems. We have our own homeless, a lot of which are veterans. The money that these people are going to take away from the system as a drain on it could be going to helping Americans. Charity starts at home. But see, people don't seem to get that these days. They think we should import people and give them charity, when it would be better for them and more cost effective to give them charity in their own country. Anyway, I've covered this well enough. I'm just going to leave things here. If you liked this video, depending on where you are watching it, please give it an upvote or thumbs up. If you want to know when new content of mine hits the internet, don't forget to subscribe to one or more of my social media or video accounts listed here. Also, with YouTube, don't forget to ring that bell. You can find all of my video content on both BitChute and YouTube. This may not be the case with other places I upload to, but I will try to minimize this happening. You are always welcome to interact with me at any of these sites on the list, so feel free to do so. If you have anything you want me to cover in a video when it comes to news or current events, send it right along to me. I will try to do my best to cover it. As always, thank you for watching.